police don't protect you. The government doesn't serve you. Change isn't made in a ballot box. You better get together with the people in your neighborhood and learn how to save yourselves.
Greetings and salutations, lovers to haters.
I'm Jim.
And I'm not Allie.
You're not?
An evil twin named Cylindra.
Oh, hey, Cylindra.
So,
I don't do this podcast with Cylindra.
you do now, because Allie's dead.
Oh.
Killed her.
Okay. Is she okay with you doing the bad podcast? Should we change the name of the
Yeah,
podcast?
we could change it to the good podcast, like a play, because I'm like bad, but it could be the good podcast.
You're definitely Allie. Yes, and this is the bad podcast.
It is.
And we have a camera.
To those of you just listening to the audience, that doesn't matter. To the audio, you are the audience. Listening to the audio, it doesn't matter that we have a camera, but we thought it would be cool to see how we interact with each other while we talk. And some people like to have a visual component to the things that they listen to.
We're trying to be more accessible.
Yeah.
There'll be a closed caption that YouTube will make.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have, therefore, more accessibility. I've started doing some of our transcripts to a couple of our more recent podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't hear us now, I guess it will be hard for you to realize that those transcripts exist, but there will be subtitles on the YouTube. So if you see us on the YouTube and are seeing that, you can actually read a couple of our podcasts.
Mm-hmm. If you're so inclined. So I am Allie, and this is...
And I'm Cylindra. No, I'm...
We're
the Bozeman
Antifa Dance and Theater Collective.
Collective.
Since he left me stranded saying the whole name myself last time, I thought I would just take it away. Fuck you, Jim. No, but we are going to be talking about some processes in improv today and art, which is why I thought to start off with that weird little moment there, role reversal. I am in my beginning / like not really in my improv phase. I just do improv really with Jim and some friends in the future. I didn't love it, but Jim has done a fair amount of improv classes at this point. So we're going to be hearing his perspective on improv, talking about something called Viewpoints that comes up in both acting and movement. And we're also going to be talking about my piece that I wrote. I won't be talking too much about that because we're just going to get started with that. And then the third thing, I already forgot it, but just kind of art in general. Oh, no. Our experiences with movement class.
Right, so that'll be the Viewpoints.
That'll be the Viewpoints. Yeah, right. I packaged that all up together. But we'll start with me talking about my essay, then we'll do improv, and then we'll transition.
This whole podcast essentially is improv, right?
Yes. And so that brings
Here
up
is our script. We are reading this right now to you. Oh, I spoke Allie's line.
Yes. always lying. But that makes me think about how often I put things in boxes unnecessarily. Like, oh, I'm not in my improv era, while simultaneously doing a lot of improvisational things. Mm-hmm. That's not necessary for me to think of myself as a person who doesn't do improv, because no, I don't really like taking an improv class. I don't necessarily need to go as far into improv principles as you were drawn to do, but I love improvising movement with people. I do like improvising scenes with people that I like and who are my friends and aren't just people that I'm slapped together with in a class. Mm-hmm. And every conversation that I have throughout the day, the way that I interact with my pets, what I decide to do in my free time. I'm doing quotes for those of you who aren't watching the video, because what a silly thing to have some time that is free and some time that isn't. Mm-hmm. But every choice essentially that I'm not being forced to make, and even sometimes the choices where I am forced to make them, is improv. It's all improv.
Yeah, our ecstatic dancing is improv. When we did a weird art piece, that was improv. We would show it to you, but it's over at Allie's place right now. Hope you're enjoying the mess of books behind us and softballs.
It has character. Character.
I actually am thinking how I desperately need another bookcase. You would think I was reading all the time.
I thought you were going to say you were thinking desperately about how you need to organize, but yeah, a new bookcase.
That will help organize.
But we can just go in to talking about my piece, I guess, and just what inspired it. I don't know. I was gonna reach for my phone to be able to reference it, but I wrote it, so I should be able to reference it. Hypothetically. So
was that you or Cylindra who wrote the piece?
Who can say? I briefly went back on a dating app, and I won't go too deeply into the content of the essay because you can read it on bozemanantifadance.org.
Do you remember we've done some podcasts? You always are love how I loop in other podcasts, but we've had podcasts at the various times you've been single during the podcast where we've gone through some of the people.
On the dating apps.
On the dating app.
Yeah, I knew you were going to bring that up. Have we done that once or twice?
I don't remember. I think twice.
Yeah.
Because we did one on a polyamory one, and then we did one that was just basic. But, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
we did Bumble and Field.
But since you're not on any dating apps whatsoever, there's absolutely no reason for us to do that exercise again.
Absolutely not. But that does point to the fact that I have been on dating apps at many a time in my life, even though I wasn't happy with doing that. And we can kind of juxtapose dating app experiences maybe, because I know you've had a very different experience. But if you're interested in that, I know you're that sounds kind of boring, Allie. No. But just, we could briefly touch on how it's different.
I've certainly been on dating apps and myself, yes.
Yeah, so in my experience, I have repeatedly gone on dating apps to kind of see what is around me, and I treat it as a psychological experiment. I want to have a very radical profile that I feel very accurately shows who I am, but I always run into the problem of not being able to do that in app format, not being able to show as much of myself in a profile as I would want to because of the limitations of the app. Mm-hmm. And also running into most people putting not even the bare minimum amount of energy into their profiles and just feeling why the fuck am I here? And never having a good time, but always getting back on them because I'm oh, this will be fun, this will be a good experience, and then I hate it. So I finally learned not to keep doing that. And in my, the final day that I had this app downloaded, I had it downloaded for a week.
Are you saying which app?
Hinge. I was trying Hinge this time. Not an ad for Hinge. If you read the essay, it's certainly not an ad for Hinge. But it doesn't... say that I don't think anyone should be on an app.
And we don't do ads on this show.
We've maybe done one or two, but it was more metaphorical.
Anti-ads.
We did anti-ads. But occasionally I'll be I do like this thing, so I'll loosely, support it. On my last day having Hinge, instead of being once again caught up in this cycle of deleting it just to re-download it later, I actually checked in with myself and about why I had a bad experience, and I wrote down some of the really funny and stupid things that people had written in their bios, and I thought that was fun. And I was what if I actually challenge myself to write a piece about this, because I also haven't been able to write much recently because of my writer's block.
Okay, do you want to share any of the stupid things people have shared? Do you have any of those from memory? I don't want you to have to go through your phone while we're being filmed.
I think just the scariest look you've ever seen at the camera. The one that stands out to me in my my mind is a guy proudly saying, I've been to 42 Dave Matthews Band concerts. And that, like, did just make me crack up reading that, because I'm like, is he trying to be funny and joke about the fact that he has no life and is pathetic? Or does he actually think it's cool that he's been to 42 Dave Matthews Band concerts?
I was married to someone who loved Dave Matthews Band.
I like maybe 2 of their songs.
It's scandalous to admit that I've been married, first of all.
But would she even have gone to 42 of these concerts? Like,
No.
that's a lot of concerts, even for your favorite artist.
I went to one with her, but yeah, 42 would be a bit much.
No, I have a Dave Matthews song, like, on one of my, like, love playlists. Like, one of their songs is okay, but I don't...
Is it Satellite?
No. I don't even remember the title of it, because it's just one that I like when it comes on, and I'm not a fan. But 42.
Oh, there's the other one.
42 is like the...
Crash Into Me.
The answer. It is Crash Into Me. It's the song. I remember being in my shower.
I've listened to that one at least 42 times. At least,
Which
Allie.
is the meaning of life, 42. But I remember being in my shower and having this, like, dramatic realization that I was in love with an ex-boyfriend when Crash Into Me was playing. And it was Camlet. And I think that's so funny, because I'm not even... I am not in love with him anymore. We'll just say that.
Okay, so that was cringy for you, and you don't know if...
Like, what the intention
if that
of
was
that was.
intention.
Yeah.
I personally would suspect that is a filter. Like, the person really is that into Dave Matthews Band, and if someone's into it, they probably have other things in common. Like, that's like, we all have these things that seem stupid but are somehow indicative for us. For me, it could be a particular Wes Anderson movie.
Right. And so something like that is funny, and I put it in the piece because it was, like, genuinely enjoyable to read. The more problematic things are when people identify with their nationalistic identities. I didn't reference any of those in my piece because I wanted that part to be funny and not be dark. I did list one quote about a guy saying, let's discuss how, like, trashing traditional masculinity is having horrible repercussions for society or something. And his whole page was so misogynistic.
Yeah, we are not that podcast.
We are not. We're not in the manosphere. And also people being like, I love God, beer, and guns, you know, and that's like the first thing on their bio.
We are not that podcast.
We are not. Anything else we are in life, we can be happy that we're not that. But instead of just feeling hopeless and perpetuating this cycle, I was like, I'm going to try my best to write a piece about my feelings about not just dating on apps, but dating in kind of this modern realm we find ourselves in, particularly in my generation, because that's my viewpoint of things, and realized all the different ways that we subtly, in a social sense, commodify ourselves and each other.
So, commodify, big word. Yeah. What does that mean?
For me, what that means in the context of the piece is valuing yourself or other people based on their so-called marketable characteristics and putting people into socially designed boxes. So it doesn't mean literally selling other people, even though I talked about how that has been a real phenomenon in the piece. I also bring up capitalism and how we're all kind of being sold in capitalism every day. And it's not talking about having a good or a service that you necessarily have to provide to the other one for this commodification to happen. But we do tend to treat each other in transactional ways for what you can do for me emotionally or with status or even just, you know, the concept of doing a trade where you have to give something because you were given
let me just see if I understand correctly.
Yeah.
You go on a dating app and you write your profile and you say, I'm looking for someone who is emotionally supportive, has a good job. This is not me, by the way.
Absolutely not.
Emotionally supportive would be nice.
That second line blows that
Yeah. Has a good job.
Jim would prefer you don't have a job.
Loves pets. Enjoys fishing.
Yeah.
Each of those things is a quality that someone may or may not have. And that is in essence like a commodity. The things we are looking for in a mate become the individual qualities are things people either have or they don't have, and they're trying to, in some sense, sell themselves to you as having a certain bundle of qualities that you'll find attractive.
Yes.
And is that a fair characterization of?
I think that's definitely fair. It's about the reduction of the self into easily identifiable parts.
Mm-hmm. And that in itself isn't bad that we're looking for qualities, though, right?
It's not bad that we're looking for qualities, although when I was talking about my idea for this piece with my therapist, she just reminded me she actually had me do kind of an exercise where I listed my things that I need and want in a relationship, my standards, if you want to say, but also how I think they might show up actionably in relationship, and how I essentially want to feel if that standard is in place. So she's always trying to get me to go to a somatic place with talking about my processing, because I'm a very somatic person. And until I feel something in my body, I might not be able to recognize it and be able to tell when it's happening. Clearly, in my last relationship, I was not able to tell that I wasn't happy a lot of the time. Or I could tell it, but I couldn't tell how much of a violation of my standards that was. And so kind of when you take a trait that you want and you extend it to how do I want that to make me feel, you realize that maybe the trait itself can be redefined a bit. And it becomes less about what the person has and how the person interacts with you and treats you.
Okay, I want to keep going deeper with this, because I think this is really key to understanding the beautiful essay that you wrote.
Oh, thank you.
You see the brown on my nose?
Jim's a big supporter.
Got a big brown nose. Maybe I'll get lucky. No. I think that comes out in audio too. But okay, so we have the commodities bad, and we have standards good. They seem like they're very similar, but what you're saying is somebody may or may not have a particular standard, or they may not have what we think of as the standard in the superficial way that, say, a dating app will provide them to us. But they still may actually reach that standard. And the problem with the dating app is that it actually reduces us to the headline of what may or may not reflect that standard. It may reflect the standard. You may say, hey, I'm a cop, for instance. It's pretty hard to...
What?
Right? Like, there are certain things that you put that may be like, well, no. You know, nothing you can do can show me that you meet the standard of what I want.
Yeah.
But there are other things that may or may not, and because the apps reduce us so much to these headlines, we're making advertisements essentially for ourselves on these apps, we're not able to really see the person or see the degree to which they do or don't meet a particular standard.
Right. I've always said, even while having dating apps, that the person who I would probably hit it off with the most on the app, I probably swipe left on. You know, and I've gone on many dates from apps where I had zero chemistry with the person, thinking that I did on paper. So, yeah, and I do talk in the piece about how there was one other self-identifying anarchist. And for a moment, I thought about it, because I'm like, yeah, they're saying the right things, like no borders, deconstructing hierarchy, they want to do weird shit in the street. But you would have really not liked this person, I think.
Okay.
I mean,
I was thinking they're still available. They're still available.
I mean, they are not a woman, so I don't think you would want them on that basis. But
good for me for not assuming.
Good for you.
Yeah. It could have been.
But this person had like the anarchist A on everything, like anarchist, which you don't like when people are like wearing anarchist shirts and pins all over the place because it feels too like emblematic. I think
it's not my aesthetic.
It's not your aesthetic. And you said that you don't like a lot of anarchists who advertise anarchy on their bodies, right? In your experience?
Generally, in my experience, yes.
Yes.
That's not to say that someone may commodify themselves that way that might still meet the standard. I can see that not being a absolute deal breaker for me.
Good to know. But this person just had anarchist A on everything, and they were kind of, I could just tell they weren't my vibe because they had a lot of things to suggest that they were into survivalism and like being really roughing it, you know, like dumpster diving all the time. I have dumpster dived, viewers and listeners, but not often.
Me too.
And yeah, it's totally nothing wrong with it as a practice. But it seemed like this person wanted to particularly like hunt their food, live in shelter that they're making. And while I think that those are valuable skills, I don't want to.
Okay, I have a probably tangential question about this person.
Ooh, tangent.
I often think that people are also selling themselves to what they think people will find attractive in their particular area, while still being somewhat true to themselves. So this person is anarchist. That's probably not popular here in Montana. However, survivalism, the hunting, all these other things really are very popular where we happen to live. And I wonder how much of that goes into it. They'll say, well, I'm this way, but I can be more palatable if I share this side of myself and really feature it.
Totally.
Or perhaps they really are that way.
Yeah.
Who's to say? But I wonder how much of that fits in, the sense of I live in a community where certain things I think of are more desirable to my population.
Yeah, that's blowing my mind because this person is a non-binary individual who was born in an identified male body. So that means they are having majority women in Bozeman viewing their profile, and the majority women in Bozeman are seeing other men holding fish and doing so-called rugged male activities. So whereas the only thing that made me almost swipe right on this person was seeing them like cross-dress and saying that they wanted to do weird things in public with people on dates, the fact that the majority of their profile was about survivalism and they showed a very weird photo of a rodent that they were roasting, like a dead rodent on a profile. Like, I couldn't do it, but they maybe were just marketing themselves that way because they thought that that's what the women in our community would be interested in.
And I suspect it's subtle, and in this person's case, there's so many alternative things about them that it seems very unlikely that they're openly marketing themselves, because that's not a way to get a lot of people. But they're like, well, if you're into certain Montana things and you don't want the normal Montana guy or non-binary person, which in itself would be different than the Montana norm, then you've got, but the fact that we think about it this way, we don't know this person. We don't know. And that's part of the problem.
I do try to diligently say in the article that all of the people that I swiped through on this app had many more layers than I could ever imagine. Even the icky ones, even the cops, they've got layers, but we don't have to want to.
We can edit that part out.
Those. Like, they have a backstory of why they decided that they need to
this has gone off the
power
rails
against their fellow humankind.
You aren't Allie, are you?
I mean, still kill a pig, get a little satisfaction, but they have a story,
Whoa!
A horrible, horrible story, but a story nonetheless.
All right, we're going to set that one to the side. So, okay. Though, where did you go with your essay from that starting point?
Where did I go? I feel like I was just kind of going through like a being John Malkovich journey inside my mind, and like it was insane. And it was actually very hard for me to get all of this out on paper, and it felt very personal to me. And I cried after I published this piece because even though it doesn't talk about anything that's necessarily overtly personal in my life, I haven't written something in years that I shared with people, and it did feel like I was processing kind of old wounds of thinking that I might not find something better than what I found, and the implications that that has for my self-worth, you know. So I talk about like having an urge to text an ex while I was on this app, and I really do believe that me becoming more hopeless about my romantic situation because of my using the app made me want to reach for this chaotic other, like just reach out chaotically, because that's what I used to do. That was an old pattern. But I tried to rewrite this pattern by actually just getting more clear on what I want, realizing that I have what I want already in my other relationships that just aren't classified as romantic or sexual. And getting very clear on the fact that I want to live a life true to my ideals, as I always have, but that could mean hypothetically that I never find the partnerships that I'm necessarily looking for, and still realizing I could live a meaningful life. I think that's taking it to the furthest extreme, because I'm 26, almost 27. I've only been single a few months. There is so much time for me to find love, like what I'm describing, in a romantic or sexual sense. But I just have to go to the furthest extreme to say that even if for some reason I didn't, I could live such a rich life. I'm already living a rich life. And I don't need to go about finding that kind of love in the ways that have been presented to us. Not that it is bad if you do. Because you have found a lot of great partners on dating apps, and you use some that are a little bit more intentional, I think. And you maybe know how to use them a bit better than I do without getting super anxious.
Perhaps, yeah. It's not like I'm single. It's not like I found my one true love, Allie.
But that's not the thing that matters, Jim. Things can be valuable and not be the final thing.
I think I just have a lot of practice with online communication.
Yeah.
I'm about to turn 50 on October 10th. We're doing this on October 1st.
Oh my god, it is the 1st. I have to pay rent tomorrow.
Jimmy Carter turns 99 today.
Oh my god. He's still alive?
He is still alive. He's been in hospice for 7 months, but he's still alive.
Yeah.
We do not support
no
Jimmy
respect.
Carter. This is not a liberal podcast.
It is important that you know this about us. We're having too much fun with the camera. Okay.
We are. But I think some of this still comes out because I change my tone when I say it.
Yeah.
So it sounds, even on a microphone, that I'm coming up, that I've turned to the camera, and you can kind of tell there's some difference.
It marks a change.
I'm actually making a point with this.
Okay. So glad.
I think... So I've been online for a very long time. The internet started coming out when I was in college in the 90s. That's when it really became popularized. And we all got on internet chat then. And I was a very shy person, but I was not a shy writer, and I've never been a shy writer. So it was very easy for me to meet people in chat rooms. And I was doing so as early as, I think, 1995. I was meeting...
Before I was born.
Thanks for reminding me how fucking ancient I am.
Age is a construct?
But in that context, there weren't pictures. There really were only words. Yes, you could then get someone's email. I didn't even have email when I started on chat.
Wow. Yeah.
I was on chat before I had an email
My mind
address.
is like doing the AOL thing. Like,
I was on a college campus, so we actually did have high-speed internet. So it was very different when I'd go to a place that had the and that was very slow. It was actually an adjustment going from a campus situation to finally getting internet at home, which So when I'd go home during the holidays, I said, when we have internet, if you wanted to stay in touch with all your internet friends, we still had long distance phones. There were no cell phones. It was all landlines. So you start calling these people up and racking up enormous phone bills
Oh my god.
when you weren't on the internet. But we were talking to people all over the world, and all we had were mostly their words. There was very little audio except for those expensive phone calls that you would make every so often. That was usually the next step. Let's get on the phone. Do you have money for the phone? Who's going to pay for it?
Yeah. That sounds kind of romantic now, but I'm sure it wasn't at the time. It was just kind of like annoying.
It was fucking expensive to do long distance phone calls because you were used to chatting with people by typing for hours, days, weeks, months at a time. You just were on this thing all the time. It was so addictive. And you had to start figuring out body language and how they were from the internet. You had to say, well, what are their physical characteristics likely to be like in person? I don't know what they are. I have no idea what they even look like. And I'm connecting with this person just through their words. I'm filling in the blanks, just like I was talking about filling in the blanks from my change of voice from the audio version of this podcast to the video version.
Ooh, there's the connection.
And at first, I made a lot of mistakes. When I would meet someone, it would go usually terribly. It didn't even have to be romantic. I met people who were non-romantic. I just like meeting people. It was really exciting for me to get away from my rural Ohio college where we were surrounded by cornfields and actually go visit people, get
out of there.
Yeah. I visited a woman at the University of Michigan. It wasn't romantic at all, but I had a fun weekend there hanging out. But it was also awkward. I was like, this person is not quite what I was expecting from the chat. And they're quite dull in person and not that interesting. I like their friends a lot more than I like them, that they're introducing me to.
Yeah.
I had a fun weekend, but it wasn't because we had this incredible chemistry, and that actually probably hurt our online friendship when I went back, because it was like, this person isn't quite what I thought they were. And that happened a lot in the romantic stuff. I'd show up so nervous because I had never had a girlfriend. I was so bad that I didn't go to prom, not because I was against prom, which I probably should have been, but because I didn't know how to ask anyone out for a date, and the one person I wanted to ask to homecoming said no, which was devastating, and I had all the teen angst and all that.
I went to prom twice. I was asked as a freshman and a sophomore, and I got left on the dance floor both times by my date, who I was totally into, and they abandoned me to go.
Wow, that sounds horrifying.
Yeah.
My horror was the social humiliation that I didn't have a girlfriend. And I came from a Greek family. Yeah. Forgive my nationalism, but I came
we all
a Greek American family.
Yeah.
And it was, if you've ever seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding, it's the opposite of a lot of Caucasian families where they're trying to protect their kids and they don't want them dating too young, and they're like, who are you dating? It's just the opposite.
Yeah.
They're trying to, my great-grandmother from the time I was 8 years old was asking me if I had a girlfriend yet. Yeah. And it was humiliating to tell her I didn't have a girlfriend. Damn. Every single time. And I didn't have a girlfriend. And then she died just before I got my first girlfriend.
Oh, that's actually really sad.
Yeah, because I really wanted to share that.
Yeah.
She had, her mind wasn't fully there. She lived to be 101 years old. She lived quite a long time. But I started getting better over time at reading the tea leaves. So yes, there's all this commodification going. I guess I got good at reading through it. I got good at saying, okay, this set of qualities, this is how they are. This is how they're likely to be in person. And over time, I've gotten a lot better at it. I've gotten a lot like, okay, this is what it's going to be like in person with this person. And it almost always is anymore when I meet people that way. So I've just don't make those kind of mistakes as much. And I think maybe I've swiped away from someone who would have been great, but I don't
But
think
we can't get trapped in what ifs like that. And would you say that you just kind of, whenever you're using an app, do you go on, get down to business, find the people that you like, and then move on? Or do you ever have the app downloaded for a longer period of time and check it casually?
Well, I have, I'm often in a relationship for a while, and then I just don't look at an app if I'm in a relationship because I'm not poly.
Yeah, but when you are not in a relationship and you have an app, it seems like you pretty much go on, find the person you like the most, and then date them.
Well, there could be several at first that you're talking to.
Mm-hmm.
The one app I've used isn't even really an app; it's a website.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it's not an app. You have to do it on a website. It's really old school in the way it's set up, but it allowed me to self-identify. They'll ask your politics. Are you liberal or conservative on most apps if they even ask you that question? And so you're already put in those boxes that aren't true to me. I'm definitely not conservative. They'll simply say liberal or very liberal. Well, and very liberal is not right either.
Right.
I'm an anarchist.
Yeah.
Anarchist does not mean very liberal. How do I set myself apart? But then I don't want all these right-wingers coming at me. So do I say very liberal? Maybe I do, because that's the only choice on the box that I have. This app allows me to self-identify as anarchist. So
right. And Hinge was a little different than that. It was like liberal, conservative, independent, apolitical, or other. And I guess I could have used either apolitical or other, but I went with other for myself.
I probably would have said other also.
Yeah.
Because
technically, as you were talking about in your piece, that anarchism is a totally different thing than politics. It's for an argument of reality without politics. We could call ourselves apolitical.
That's true. I wrote an essay recently too.
You did. Go read Jim's essay on BozemanAntifa.dance.org. But I didn't want to put apolitical, even though that could technically be correct. Because to me, that just has a tone of apathy, like, oh, I don't care about politics. I see a lot of people on apps who don't care about politics, who are like, fuck social issues, and have like that they're apolitical. So I did want to put other because I felt like anarchism was more specific.
Right. So
there's no proper.
They will put you in a commodifying box, and you have to get good at reading people's, like, if somebody doesn't put a lot of stuff, it's rare that I respond to it. Although I did date to one person who went that route, and it actually was pretty good. And I don't know what I was able to read in her profile. It may have been something in the way she portrayed her pictures. It could have been that, I think in her case, she reached out to me. So then I got more information that way rather than me reaching out to her. Because I don't think I would have reached out to her. I need to know something from the words, and if you're someone who doesn't use words, then you're not likely to be someone who I'm going to like. But if you reach out to me first, there could be a way around that, because now you're using words that I can analyze. Yeah,
the one person that I did like on this app, because it wasn't a swiping right situation, it was liking or commenting on a part of someone's post if you were interested, or just thought that picture was cool. I go into how that was a little bit of a confusing element in the piece, but the woman that I liked on this, I just got a sense that she was very poetic and sensitive in her pictures, but also that she had a fun and expressive side. She was wearing weird outfits, she was dancing at fire circles. She lived in a van, which is a quality I like in men, but she was doing her own thing in her, Jim just did a little darty look at the camera.
I'm having a panic attack at the moment. Well, not really.
Whoa! I'm like, are we getting into the improv right now?
No. I just am now, this is the first time we've videotaped. We do not have a producer. I am the producer of our podcast. I'm now like, what if it's not filming all of this?
Do you want to go check?
I'm going to go check.
Okay.
You do something, say something to keep the audio going.
Okay. So, this chick on Hinge.
We're good.
This chick on Hinge just seemed like a person that I could have interesting conversations with. I did find her physically attractive. And, it just seemed like there could potentially be something there. But then we only exchanged a few messages. I tried to get it to go deeper and talk about, like, she mentioned she was at therapy and she had been crying that day. And I'm like, what are you working on in therapy? And also, like, here's what I think of work, because she asked me what job I had, because I was talking about having a bad day at work. Anyway, conversation fizzled out after 5 messages, and I've been told that that's very common for women dating other women on apps, because we both don't know how to, like, keep it going and assert and like do things that typically we've just allowed men to do in our lives that we could perfectly do for ourselves, but we don't want to. And in this situation, I could have been the assertive one, but because I wasn't getting what getting what I wanted from responses with her, I didn't see a reason to do that.
Big pause. No.
For us, that's a big pause because we're just like.
Well, the one thing is I realize on the audio I can cut out the extra sound. I can't do it on the video because it'll be weird little blips.
Yeah, you'll have to see us in an unpolished, more messy form, which is what could be interesting.
This now goes slightly off the topic of your essay.
Yeah,
but
let's get off of it.
No. I don't necessarily want to because I think that's the interesting message from a radical perspective, the commodifying of things. But do you think in a relationship, you mentioned how women often don't feel assertive because of patriarchal tendencies in our society, which tell women to be more passive, I suppose. Do you think in any relationship you have with a woman that someone is going to have to take a more assertive role? It's really hard for a relationship if nobody's assertive.
Who's gonna wear the pants, as my dad says? And it's like, Dad, women wear pants now. Did you know that? But yes, I understand your question.
Do you think you want to be in a relationship where you are in the more assertive role?
So there's many layers to that. I will say that I don't think the problems that I've experienced on dating apps or in trying to date women in real life is necessarily because of our conditioning to be passive, but more so just the societal patterns we've fallen into of accepting being in a relationship with a man who is more assertive. So it's not necessarily that we have to be passive. I think a lot of us have gone beyond that conditioning for ourselves. But in relationship, it does seem that whenever you're dating a man in my life, no matter how much he's deconstructed his role in society, it still just is part of the norm of our romantic relationships for the man to be more comfortable making decisions and being the one to ask the person out and those sorts of things. I think that I'm discovering my assertiveness more and more. And I think I was the assertive one in my last relationship with a man.
But I don't think you felt super comfortable with that.
I felt comfortable with it in some situations. There's a difference between being the one who often is more assertive and being with a partner who has a very hard time ever being assertive.
Right.
So I'm happy when both people can assert themselves.
Right.
It's okay if one person does that a
Absolutely.
bit more.
Yeah.
But the problem is when, I'm forced to always be the default assertive person in the relationship because the other person doesn't know what they want and doesn't know who they are.
Yeah, this is a totally different topic, but it just generally interests me. The issue of what are the chemistry things that work and the ways that we're patterned and conditioned do come up in our relationships. Even if they're not, I guess you could be a more assertive female who prefers less assertive males, or any combination. It's not even necessarily a gender thing, even if there are demographic tendencies. And yet it still can be true. It could be true that, I'm open to relationships with women, but the challenge is I can't find a woman that I am attracted to who happens to be more assertive than I want to be.
Right. The only woman I have been with sexually was more assertive than me, and we had good sex, but we did not want to date thereafter. So, well, not much more to say on that.
We could say more, but we're not going to.
But I need to have the freedom to explore my assertive side more because I just spent a lot of my life invalidating my own opinions and thoughts and ability to, say something that may be out of turn but needs to be said or make a choice that could be against the grain. I spent a lot of time not feeling like I could do those things. And I'll still do that. Like, I'll still limit myself and what I can do and not even like think about new territory or, suggesting something that I haven't done with a person before, even when I'm in a supportive relationship with a man. So I think that as time goes on, I will see more confidence in my own assertions. And I need to be in a relationship where I'm not forced to assert myself, but where the space is conducive to me discovering how that looks and how that works.
And a dating app may not give you the right information on that. It may be particular to that app that makes it harder for someone to be more assertive. Like you've been on Bumble, where women reach out to the men first. It's a lot. Like that's why a lot of women like it, because they don't have to fend off all these men coming after them with all their assertiveness.
Yeah.
That's actually why I although I've never met someone from Bumble. No, I haven't. I've had some interactions with people from Bumble, but what I like it is I do not want to have to make the first contact.
Yeah.
In fact, I can't think of a single relationship, even on any of the ones that I've been on where I've met people, where the ones I reached out to first were the ones that ended up becoming serious.
That's fascinating.
And in almost every case, it was the woman who reached out to me first.
Yeah.
That was true in my last relationship. That was true in the relationship before it. And those were two really good relationships.
I mean, we can take so much pressure off of men by being our assertive selves if we're trying to date men. And not only reversing these roles, but deconstructing why they exist in the first place.
It's not an advertisement for Bumble, though.
It's
even though
not.
that does that. It does it that way.
I've met two partners on Bumble, as I talk about, and I don't find that it, like...
They've been your best relationships in a way.
They were my best relationships in a way. I would say I had one other one that was really valuable to me that wasn't from an app, but it didn't fend off the model of Bumble didn't fend off the creepy dudes, because I would match with people who I thought were safe because I wasn't reading between the lines, or because they truly presented themselves as safe, good people who were interesting. And as soon as you match with them and you can talk now, they're pestering me, they're sending weird shit. I think at some point they developed a block feature to do after you match, but at some point there wasn't that. So I was getting like lots of really creepy, weird things from guys who I thought I could be attracted to and who were okay. And I actually like almost got assaulted by a guy that I went on a Bumble date with and who came back to my house. He was waiting for his Uber to come get him because something was wrong with his car. And he repeatedly tried to make out with me and get sexual on my couch. And I was pushing him away and being like, when the fuck is this Uber going to get here? And that was very concerning. I've actually had a handful of very concerning situations from Bumble. So the feature can only do so much.
There's not a lot of information that you get from a Bumble, quite honestly. Yeah. Of course, then you start talking to people and you have that chance. Some people want to meet right away. Some don't. I tend to be a little slower because I'm like, I don't need to meet you right away. You know, like I thought you were going to say
you would be a little faster.
I can be fast.
Are excited to.
I can be fast. My intuition works really quickly, but I'm also someone who, if someone's pressing me to meet right away, that's usually a flag. But it's not always a flag.
Something that I saw in a lot of profiles was like, the prompt was, I'll be excited to see you if, and the person was like, if you want to just delete these apps right away and meet up. And I'm like, I hate that.
Yeah, because you're on the app, so.
Yeah, you're on the app, and also it sounds like you're ready to just date the first person who gets in there and, you know.
It feels like a game.
Gamifying relationships is definitely something that happens on these apps.
And I don't like that.
No.
And I rarely meet people who interest me here in the town I live in. So that's another problem. That's why I've sometimes gone to apps that are more specific, that I can tailor more to my beliefs, but they're not as popular. They don't have as many people on them. So the people you match could be somewhere else.
Right.
I'm older. A lot of people that you're going to meet are the people who are going to be able to travel. My problem has been I have a child. I'm not willing to move, so I'm meeting people who are far away, and I'm in this case of, actually, you're going to have to come here. And if someone's that willing to come here, then I'm like, oh, why are they so desperate to come here?
Even though you'll totally go to them. Like, you have gone to
I moved
lots of
across the
women.
country
Yeah.
to be with the person who became my wife
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
for a fairly short
And you
time.
traveled to Jackson for a relationship.
Jackson's not far, though.
Well,
By
you
my
went to
standards, it's not far. Spokane's not
Kinda
super far. I was in Ohio and I met a
We have
woman
different
in the
definitions
90s.
of far. I
Yeah.
can't bike to Spokane, and I don't want to take a bus to Spokane, and so nobody in Spokane for me.
Ava was in the DC area and met someone on a dating app. They didn't live right in DC. They lived closer to Baltimore, which was not super far, but it was still a bit of a drive to get there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like 45 minutes, an hour.
Yeah. I have said that I enjoy saving at least $130 each month, not visiting my ex. Sometimes more, if I had to pay for pet care and 2 tickets instead of 1. But yeah, it's $130 round trip to take a bus to Missoula.
And Missoula's 200 miles from us.
Mm.
If you do the metric system, that's still pretty far.
Oh God, I don't want to think about the metric system. Yeah.
Well, it would be about 2 kilometers. So 1 kilometer is 0.262 kilometers in a mile. Or no, it's more than that. It's 0.26 miles in a kilometer. So it's more than 3 point some. Yeah.
My brain just shut off like a malfunctioning computer in the 90s. So I would just say go read my article on our website if you're interested.
And you said that very quickly before, so we'll say it again. BozemanAntifadance.org. I also have a newer essay there about anarchism and how it's not politics, but we're not talking about that in this podcast.
We're not, besides my brief mention of it. Anything else you'd like to say on dating before we transition, Jim?
I just said I'm not dating at the moment and have not been on a dating app, and I've not looked at the dating apps since I was broken up with. I was dumped.
Yeah. Very sad. I'm sad about it.
Back in May, and it's October, so this is probably the longest in a long time that I've not looked for someone at all.
And how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I feel fine. Like you said in your piece, feeling like you have all your needs met without a romantic partner. No, I'm not having sex. It'd be amazing to be having sex. There's all these pieces of me that I feel like are really expressive, beautiful pieces of me that I'm not able to share with someone. It's a lot easier to do things like partner dancing with a partner, or there are just things I love to do with a partner that I'm not doing, and I would love to co-create, but I'm co-creating with you. So I don't need a romantic partner for that. And I feel complete as a person. Even though I felt like I had grief from my relationship, I don't feel like it tore me apart. I didn't slip away the way I did when I was much younger. Not that much younger, maybe my early 40s as opposed to my late 40s. I guess my late 30s is a better example. So I've had a good run of 10 or 11 years of solidity, but before that I was not solid. If things fell apart, I fell apart. And I've had a lot of weird shit in the last 10, 11 years in romantic relationships, and it has not brought me down.
Yeah. And the work you've done on yourself to be at this place where you feel stable and connected and good in yourself is a huge accomplishment.
I've learned to love my own company. I've learned not to define my life by my romantic relationships. And even though I love being in romantic relationship and enjoying that kind of connection, my life's infinite and full, and I'm not going to put myself into that box that's where my happiness comes from. And I don't think I'm faking it to say I've been doing pretty good.
I don't think you're faking it either, because I can look at you and say, you're doing pretty good. deranged. I'm just looking normal at the camera.
Speaking of deranged, are we gonna
Get
do some
deranged?
improv?
What?
Do some improv?
Yeah, we're gonna do improv. Do you want to set us up and say what you think improv is?
I want to set
Or
us
what it means.
up.
I don't know.
I want to set us up, get us going. There's so many things improv means. I don't know if I could do that in a full podcast. What I want to say about improv, I've been taking improv classes now for feels like a couple of years at Last Best Comedy. Not an advertisement.
5 million years.
Good people at Last Best Comedy. I've not done a lot of performing there, except for the performing that I've done on open mics and showcases for my classes. I just haven't. I tried out once and didn't get into something, but for the most part I haven't tried. But I enjoy improv as a process of opening up my freedom. So last podcast I had you do an exercise of automatic writing, and I tied that to the history of surrealism. Surrealism didn't begin as melting clocks. It began as what in our art can free us, the product of the art being secondary to the process of opening yourself up to the free flow of your consciousness. Improv, in a way, is opening yourself up to the free flow of your consciousness, only it's not like automatic writing in that you're not just saying anything that comes to your mind. I think that's a misconception in improv, that we're just completely saying random things that happens. That might be a fun exercise to do sometime with you, where we're not actually doing what the art of improv as trying to perform for an audience, but the art of improv of can we will sometimes do this kind of stuff in an improv class. Can we basically just say anything that comes to our mind, whether there's any relationship between it, what you're going to say or not, and continue that, and everything be an inspiration. That's an improv exercise. It's almost never something people would do on an improv stage. I think it would be actually a fun, surrealist exercise to do at some point. That probably interests you more than improv itself. But it's also, at that point, still an individualistic exercise. We're only tapped into our own flow, and we're only casually listening to whatever the other person says that will now be the new prompt for our own flow.
Right. It's
so
not
it's
like
like
deeply intimate.
It's basically two people getting in touch with themselves.
Yeah.
Very important improv exercise. Some of my teachers even do exercises like that, where two people come out talking, and they're both talking the entire time, not listening to a word either person is saying, and you're just allowing yourself to be in that total flow. So it's an aspect of improv. But improv takes that aspect of flow that we find in automatic writing and then says, hey, we do care what the other person is saying. How are we going to respond to that? Are there emotions involved with that? Can we feed off each other and discover what our scene is together, and then we work together to build that scene? We don't know what the outcome's going to be. We don't know where we are. We don't quite know where we're going. All we know is I've come in with some emotion. Maybe there's a suggestion for my scene. I've tapped into my initial flow, but now I've actually got to listen and respond and see what we can work on and build together.
It's a mutual becoming in art.
Correct. And to me, it may be closer to the spirit of how we'd see anarchism in our world.
I was going to say that, especially how we always talk about anarchy not meaning chaos, as people assume it means. Like, yeah.
So if we were simply doing the automatic processing, that probably will come out chaotic. It would be fun. We'd be in a safe environment where that would be okay, but it's not exactly anarchy. So anarchy is that flow, those things that allow you to get free into your flow, but then caring about the person next to you, thinking about what they're saying, not knowing what the outcomes of your little community are, and then working on that, and then realizing at some point, hey, it may not be working. Scene, we're done.
Yep.
This is it. We can't go any further with what we're going.
But
and
in
that's
the process,
not sacred.
there is mutual discovery, which is valuable on its own.
And when you discover there's not mutual discovery, you realize, holy fuck, this is not working right now. And that's
Yes.
valuable in itself.
As we should be with the current government that we have. Holy fuck, it's not working. Scene. Let's do something else.
And it can be a lot of fun, and it can also be frustrating. And
Yeah.
improv scenes don't have to be funny. So as
we
we
have
do
an
this,
example of that on a past podcast.
we did do improv, and later I discovered we broke what are called rules of improv.
Because of me, I thought it would be interesting to.
Well,
to do
no,
this.
I think it was interesting. It was a really interesting piece. It's also, now I understand why it probably was never going to be funny the way we were doing it. Not that the goal should be to be funny. It should never be your goal in
Yeah.
improv.
Because then you'll just be tacked.
But there are certain things, certain decisions that were made right from the start. And it was never pure improv because you were coming in with a situation we already understood.
Yeah.
So it was improv. We played two characters that came in with a situation, and your character had amnesia. And our characters did not know each other. So typically in improv, there are two rules right there that were broken. One, because improv tends to go off the rails, it's really hard to ground a scene that begins in a situation that is generally implausible. Someone walking into a restaurant who has amnesia. So even though it's a possible situation, it's in the realm of possibility. It's not something anyone can relate to.
Yeah.
Very few people can relate to walking into with absolute amnesia. Maybe an aspect of not remembering that could be brought in. Like you can bring amnesia into your scene. That can make it absurd and funny.
Yeah.
But the idea of initially trying to ground a scene that's already probably going to divorce itself from reality at some point, already divorced from reality, makes it harder. Although we did really ground it in real conversation.
I think so.
So that actually made it really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is our characters didn't know each other.
Yeah, and relationship is
so there's so much discovery going on, and that's not something people can quite grasp onto. You want to relate to the characters who are already relating to each other. It's common in improv scenes that people will put themselves in situations where they don't know each other. It happens all the time, but it's not considered something that's going to set yourself up for success and probably laughs and magic in your improv. We broke those rules. It was still kind of beautiful and interesting, but we're going to try to do improv, keeping some of these other lessons in mind, and we may fail at them because we have no idea what's going to come.
I'm going to just pull up my little list of.
What if it's wrong? What if I got one of those wrong? I didn't look through my notes. It's all from memory.
Well,
I know 5 of the 6 are right.
Those are what you said before. So this is what we're.
So we are going to do a series of 3 scenes, what are known as beats of scenes. We're going to come in as characters. Because we are doing this for audio too, we are not going to do the physicality that often is really important to a scene. So we're already cutting ourselves off. This is going to be simply audio based. Maybe there'll be some gestures.
We are divorced from our full selves.
Which is already a handicap and a challenge. But we're going to try this. As an experiment. As an experiment in anarchist freedom and art and surrealism. Maybe we'll try some automatic speaking. Maybe that could be like our little warm-up exercise to get us going. We'll just do a little blah, 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 blah. And the last thing we happen on will be our suggestion or something like that. Okay. That was just me improvising right there.
It was great. Good job.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Consensus. We are really practicing our anarchy here.
Always.
We're practicing our anti-fascism. Mm-hmm. We're also practicing for a show we're going to be doing, we hope, if it still goes through, weather permitting, all these things, October 13th. We're not going to give you details because
you can't come.
It's not totally open to everybody in the world. Not that we have a lot of
people. What if we
people.
just had 50 people from around the world clamoring to come to our open mic night at a friend's house?
There's an open stage night at a friend's house in her backyard, and she set up a stage for people to sort of jam, do theater jamming, basically. Like, people get in the backyard with their music, we're going to be jamming with theater. There's room for some audience there. our friend is a little concerned of too many people at some point showing up, so I don't know how much we can build it. So we're being a little coy, but it will be October 13th here in Bozeman at a location. If you do hear this and are interested, reach out to us. That'll probably be all we need to know is you reaching out to us, that we probably tell you where it is.
Yeah.
We just don't want to totally put this person's address and all that stuff
No,
out there.
that would be doxing.
Yes. And
we don't dox our
so we're
friends.
in part practicing for that, and we're going to just take some risks.
We are practicing the performance, but life is also the performance.
And there's a lot of other things that we're going to tie many
ties, dude.
into our last part of the podcast where we're talking about viewpoints, especially in Suzuki and movement practices. Even though we're not moving during this,
we're not moving, guys. Don't even move an inch, Jim.
Okay, we ready?
We're ready.
We're gonna do some automatic talking.
You started off.
One after the other. The yellow trees fuck the bastards with the crosshairs of a lamp.
I sharted in his face.
The face was lovely, and nobody knows the Germans down the street.
The fox noticed that the person had a face, but he didn't really care.
Fox say lots of shit. We don't bake bread on Saturdays.
Baking is a sin.
Sins are totalitarian mustard greens for your mom's shoulder cancer.
Sins are sexy little shoulder shrubs in the back of my ex's van.
Your ex's van, made of pink shards of plastic, have never seen Jupiter or the color Tuesday.
In caves on the planet Earth that have never had people in them, they still contain microplastics.
Last ones, microplastics have never, ever shown us their tits or eaten celery from the mouth of the Jolly Green Giant.
Beautiful.
Your last one will be our suggestion.
I thought that was going to be the suggestion. Shit. Okay. The giant jellyfish spoke in riddles that defied time and ate microplastics along with creme brulee.
Creme brulee is our suggestion.
Beautiful.
Hey, Marcy.
Hey, Jeff.
What's up?
Just trying to figure out how to bake this creme brulee recipe for my aunt's funeral on Sunday.
Oh, that's too bad that your aunt died there, Marcy.
Yeah, it is.
Hey, would you like to go out with me?
I mean, maybe once I'm done baking this creme brulee, but it's a really long process. And I feel like you always try to ask me out when I'm like dealing with something emotionally.
Yeah, you're dealing with. Were you close with your aunt?
Yeah, like seriously close.
Seriously close with your aunt?
Like closer than anyone else in the world.
Well, maybe I could take you out to her funeral. Show you how much I care.
I mean, would you pay for dinner after?
Of course.
I'm kind of sick of making this creme brulee. Maybe we could just go buy some creme brulee.
Wow, you're actually saying yes to me.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm just in such a dark place that honestly, what could go worse?
You know Marsha?
Yeah, I've
I
seen
know.
Marsha.
You're Marsha.
Yeah, there's like kind of a battle between us, actually. It's annoying.
So Marsha said, I said, I'm going to ask her out. I'm going to ask I'm going to ask you out.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask Marcy out. And she said, again, you're going to ask Marcy out again? I said,
she would, yeah.
I'm going to ask her out again. And I said, this time she's going to say yes. And she's like, that never works, you stalker. And I said, it works. It works. And now you're going to go out. We're going to go get creme brulee and go to your aunt's funeral, and it's going to be a date.
Hold on. So I don't necessarily want to give you the satisfaction of being right to her. Like, I'm reconsidering. I'm just going to bake creme brulee, and I don't need dinner after my aunt's funeral. Let's not do it.
Okay. So, scene. Second scene, I want to see you with your aunt when she was still alive.
And you're going to be the aunt?
I'm going to be the aunt.
Okay.
Marcy.
Jane.
So good to see you.
It's always so good to see you. I just feel like I'm not understood at home, and classes are sucking right now, and I hate my job, and coming to your place is always like the most amazing thing in my life.
Oh, it's so good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you too.
Did you bring a young man, perhaps?
No young man. I don't really have any young man in my life, so.
Oh, that's too bad. I didn't have a young man in my life until
Yeah.
recently.
Oh, who did you find, Jane?
Oh, he was such a sweet man. He just kept asking, and I said, no, you're far too young for me.
Oh, okay.
But he just kept asking and asking and asking, and oh, you have to admire that kind of persistence. And we fucked.
Whoa, I'm in a different generation, Jane, so, like, in my world, being persistent like that isn't the coolest thing ever. But sometimes, you take what you can get. But I'm curious, what did this guy look like? You said he was young. Was he, like, my age?
Oh, I think he might have been younger.
Younger?
I don't know, my eyes, they don't really work anymore.
Okay.
He might not even have been him.
Okay, well, I'm 22, Jane, so how much younger are you thinking?
Oh, we're so close, aren't we? You want to know everything that's in my life.
We are, and I just wanted to make sure that you're not...
Here, have another bite of this creme brulee. It's my favorite.
Scene? And then for our third iteration, I would like to do a tangent. Can I say who I want to do the tangent, or just one of us does the tangent?
Yeah, or who the characters are, yeah.
I would like to go back to my Marcy, was that my name?
Yeah.
Marcy and Jeff, and have Jeff go on a tangent after.
What's the tangent, though? The tangent's something that happened in the scene that you're pulling.
The tangent is something from the scene. Go on a tangent about creme brulee that doesn't have anything to do with what we already talked about.
But it's the same two characters.
Yes.
That date was so hot, Marcy. You know what your pussy tastes like?
What, Jeff?
Tastes like creme brulee.
I guess that's a good thing.
Oh my god, it was the best. Not like that store-bought stuff.
I'm still kind of grossed out that we went on the date.
Homemade creme brulee.
Better than the creme brulee I was able to make for Jane's funeral. But yeah, I'm glad you liked it. I think the sex was fine.
Jane. Your aunt's name is Jane?
Yeah. Didn't you know that? You went to the funeral.
I know an older woman named Jane. And oh my god. Her pussy. It tasted like creme brulee.
Scene.
I
was wondering if you were gonna pull that back in. That she may have fucked
I know,
Jeffrey.
and actually, so from a coaching standpoint, I may have brought too much stuff in. Like it's too plot. It's what I think the criticism would be. We were too plotty from a. You may have enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it. It was fun. Was it fun for you to do that scene?
It was. It was a little bit anxiety-inducing, just because, like any specific improv activity probably will be for a while. It is an edge for me, but I do think it was fun and better than a lot of our practice.
Creme brulee.
Because I was trying to insinuate that maybe Jane had sex with Jeffrey.
Right,
But then
I
it
knew
was
you
like,
were
maybe
doing
Jane's
that.
just a pedophile, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Jane was
maybe
a little
to,
senile.
something to, like, make her character not totally flawless.
Right. I'm trying to build on the closeness and the things and yeah. I don't know, but it was fun for me when you said, okay, we're gonna tangent creme brulee, but then you said we were the same characters, so we were mixing. I did a mix too. Like typically, if you move time, you would move the same characters back in time, but I actually moved us in time because the aunt was dead, so I didn't know how to do that.
So you kind of did both.
So I did two, which you can
Breaking
do,
the
but it's a
rules.
little bit of a rule break.
Yeah.
And then the second one, tangent, if it was creme brulee, typically we would have had two other characters do something on creme brulee.
Yeah.
And that's what made it more plotty, is because we kept too many ties together for it to. And the reason plot typically doesn't work in improv is that the audience gets too much expectation of what is supposed to happen here. And so they have an expectation, and then you feel like your scene now is to meet their expectation of it, rather than build off of these concepts and ideas and create the freedom of fun. So
we killed the freedom of fun.
So we get a solid maybe C+ on that, but it was fun, and it was fun to.
It wasn't a complete disaster.
No, we did some things well too. So one was the escalation of the creme brulee.
It certainly did escalate. Good job escalating that bit.
And I don't know if creme brulee was. So I'm going back to negative again. I don't know if creme brulee was interesting enough or weird enough. That was our suggestion, for it to be a tangent you would pull off of. It could be some weird shit that I don't know if there was anything that I would have
there wasn't
tangentially
else
carried.
like I wanted to do a tangent, so maybe my obsession with wanting to do a tangent.
Yeah.
But I wanted Jeffrey's character to get to like do something weird, which was funny.
But really, ultimately we did a time dash because with their characters, because it was forward. In the future, it was after the funeral, and so that's what we ended up really doing with it. So it takes practice. So we did a lot of things there, but we had a clear point of view of the characters, especially I would say mine. My character wants to get with you. Your character is kind of waffly.
Yeah.
A little bit.
I'm a waffly, kind of passive.
You're a little prudish, but then you're open, and you're not open.
Yeah.
You're one of these females who's not assertive.
Yeah. I'm one of these females on a dating app that isn't Bumble.
We were trying to play with persistence, but then that didn't really carry through. The persistence of men. We're actually bringing in our rest of our episode into it. So there's a lot of things there.
And the
it'll be
spirit
interesting
of
to
play
listen to it. Yeah,
it's just what we really want to.
We were going for it, right? Like you have to be willing to be risky.
And I think the inability to focus on physicality really like limited where we could go.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. And yet a lot of actors...
Because I'm just looking at you being like, what do I do?
But a lot of actors on an improv stage completely cut off their physicality. They just stand in the middle of the room and look at each other.
Damn.
So that's what's interesting, is that physicality often gets lost on stage improv anyway, because of the way people get so verbal. So there was emotional points of view. There was desires. I'm not sure what your character wanted, or
She didn't really want anything. She wanted to briefly be distracted from her grief, but also didn't want this man to have satisfaction. But then also you forced me into having had satisfaction, or maybe not having had sex with you, but maybe not having been satisfied. So she's kind of a non-entity. She's an NPC, as we say. So I guess maybe that's a problem on my part, not having a strong point of view, but I wanted to play a person who didn't have a strong point of view. Like kind of an Aubrey Plaza, like monotone chick who's just chilling.
Which is typically what a teacher would say, don't do
I can't follow the rules, guys. I can't do it. I also only took Improv 101, so don't at me.
And because your character wasn't, like, I character dashed your character, yours is probably, I don't know. Sometimes you take the less interesting of the two characters, but my character wasn't super interesting. He's just a fucking douche who was like, wasn't going to take no for an answer and just wanted to prove that if he kept going, he could
Had we gone, so I wanted,
and he didn't care about your emotions or anything, you know, like your aunt died, and he's like, yeah, I want to go on a date.
And then I'm like, I just want free food, so like my motivation is free food.
But it's real. You can see fucking guys do that kind of stuff, like completely emotionally misread a situation.
You can see women initially not wanting to go on a date with a guy. Even in my generation, I referenced there being a generational difference with Jane, but also said that sometimes we do date people who are just persistent because, you'll be like, I have standards, I want to do these things, and then you're like, maybe I'll just do it.
And now I'm thinking about it, the idea that I brought date through was not conscious, but it must have been part of the zeitgeist of our conversation. That it was.
I knew it was going to be date. I knew it was date.
I really had no. For me, it wasn't conscious.
Yeah, I actually didn't want to go that direction, but the instant I'm like, creme brulees our suggestion, I knew it was going to somehow end up being date.
And we don't deep down want it to be about creme brulee. We want it to be about our characters, our relationship with each other, or certain interesting themes that come up.
Yeah.
So, okay, it was a C minus.
It was we've gone down after we rated it.
But if we had fun, we can get bonus points for. I had fun.
I had fun too.
I'm a harsh critic.
I don't like to rate things, so we'll go with a C minus. But moving on from that, do we want to move on from that? Anything else to say?
No. I'll transition us into the next thing. So yes, you mentioned the lack of physicality, so we could not really establish space between us. What else? So we couldn't. Our shape was irrelevant to each other. We could have been that. You probably can imagine a shape. We probably were about the same distance we are sitting from each other, which is, if you're on the audio, like inches from each other.
I didn't have a strong point of view, and I was not unmistakable in my presence.
We're bringing in Suzuki, too.
Maybe a little bit.
But if we're doing viewpoints, if it's stems, so shape or space, we can kind of gather from the dialogue, but we don't see it. Shape,
I was just saying.
We can maybe guess that these people are just boringly near each other.
Maybe I'm somehow making creme brulee.
Maybe we could imagine a shape in the last scene, like him kneeling at her knees or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And then
time we were playing with, but a sense of time, not really. No.
Emotion, we talked about. Jim had a slightly stronger emotion than mine, but still not a ton of emotion. He's just kind of
and my aunt character was happy to see you, dizzy, and I would say happy, ultimately.
Yeah.
And your character
was happy to see her, but I think ultimately
A
Lilith
little-
was her favorite.
Happiness was a
relationship.
little bit repulsed, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
was
it
like-
explains why she's willing at one point to go get a store-bought brulee. Maybe they aren't as close as...
Exactly.
she
I
was
didn't want
saying.
it to be revealed that they weren't actually as close.
So so we're going through. We'll explain in a second,
Yeah.
but we're actually going through a thing. Motion itself, movement.
Yeah.
We had none.
And then story. I mean, we did have
If
arguably
anything,
too much story.
Too much story, but
Yeah.
there was definitely a story going on here. We've got the story of, I don't even remember my character's name. Jeff and Marcy.
Yes.
And Aunt Jane.
I forgot my own name after the
And
other girl
Marcy.
had a similar name. I was like, I don't even know what my name is anymore.
This is just another interesting point about improv is you think because it's not scripted you don't have to remember stuff, but actually you have to remember far
a
more.
lot.
You actually on the fly have to be remembering tons and tons of details and things
Mhm.
and figuring out which details you want to remember and which you're going to let go because you also have to be in the moment with them.
Yes.
So it's actually from a memory standpoint, I think more challenging than scripted where you have all this time to memorize.
Right.
It actually is more memorizing, I think, in an improv
I
scene.
think so too. And it's
Strangely enough.
and it's very intimate. Not necessarily more intimate, but
Your pussy tastes like creme brulee.
I didn't
I have-
mean intimate in that
I have no
way.
idea what her pussy tastes like, by the way.
It's different all the time.
You've
Very
tasted
soon
your
as I go,
own,
Of
probably.
course I have.
Does it ever? Has
I've
it ever
gotta
tasted?
know.
Am I like into that?
Has it ever tasted like creme brulee?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
And it's an unrealistic expectation on women for it to be so. So if any of you are out there thinking, "Oh no, I've got to like put something
Look
up
at
in
my
there and
interview
scrub
skills.
it,"
Look at my interview skills. Now we know some information about your pussy taste.
yeah, I mean sometimes it's sweeter than others, but like it's never gonna seem like it has cinnamon and butter in it.
I don't know what my own dick tastes like.
Well, that's a problem. Figure a way to figure that out. Some guys suck their own dick somehow.
I don't know. I've nenever tried. Have you ever seen the movie Clerks?
Nope, I still haven't.
Okay, well that's a allusion to the movie Clerks.
Nice. So
Tangent. I just brought a
I was
tangent.
about to say tangent, and then I was like, does that count as a tangent?
Okay, so and then the last thing, story. So what we're talking about is we're taking a movement class together. So I'm taking improv without Allie, but I'm also taking a movement acting class. Right?
It's a movement class specifically for people who want to do acting, to be able to get more of like a solidity in their bodies and in their movements for acting to supposedly become an undeniable presence if you're following the Suzuki method, which we won't talk about even though I mentioned it.
We could talk about it too.
We could. I don't think it's as interesting for this episode.
Mm-hmm.
But reading from the Viewpoints.com, which were created by Mary Overly, who I'll say a couple things about.
Mary Overly was from Bozeman.
Yes, these were developed in Montana and then refined in her art groups in other cities, I think mostly New York. But the 6 Viewpoints is a study that establishes and expands the base of performance by inquiring into the vocabulary of the basic materials that are found in the creation of all art. In addition to the stems that we mentioned, space, shape, time, emotion, movement, and story, there is also something called the bridge, which we have not talked about, which is a set of 9 philosophical interrogations into the nature of performance, which I want to get into at some point. So she felt at 9 years old in 1957 that there was a curiosity in her about the basic materials that constituted theater, and basically that there were just these elements that are always in good theater that you can start with as your focus, and then expand outwards. And she had a really good quote.
So unlike our bad theater that had almost none of those.
Yeah.
Except for too much of story.
Yeah. And not bad, mediocre. It's all about marketing. We're commodities. Just kidding.
We had one of 6, and the others you had to find if you could.
Yeah. It's a create your own adventure improv, in finding what we were doing. So in 1970 in Soho, where she was part of a radical art movement, she asked her fellow artists that she self-organized with to join her in inventing the wheel backwards. So this is a quote from her in 1989. "We worked our way back. We did not try to know what was known. We tried to unknow it. We lived in caves and watched as the beasts roamed around us. The caves were our minds, and the beasts were the elements of form. We were reforming art into a democracy. We were studying phenomena. Formalism disappeared through the act of scrutiny and reappeared in a new position of equality. How we got to those caves with those beasts is a curious story that I am still working to understand, but what is clear is that the commitment to bring others there is at the heart of this work."
So what does that mean to you?
So that means...
'Cause that seems very different from what we were just talking about.
Well, I just like this quote.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to share something of her words about viewpoints. I don't think it's entirely different than what
I don't think
we're
it
talking
necessarily is either, but I want you to
Because-
connect those dots.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm feeling very abstract today, so I don't know how well I'll do that. But starting with nothing but a word, and then going wherever you would like with it, as long as it is a mutual process of discovery in the name of art, in the name of theater. We are here to create something together. It doesn't have to be good, but it will, by the nature of itself, be new. We are creating something that hasn't been created before, because we are the ones doing it, and we are conscious in its co-creation. So we're picking something that has a connotation to it, and then we're bringing it into another perspective. And we're committed to just seeing that through regardless of how successful
So
it is.
okay, let me try to connect some dots, because I've never read this person. I can't ever remember her name. When you say her, I still don't remember her name. If you asked me what it is, I would not be able to tell you.
Still?
No.
It's Mary Overly.
Mary Overly.
Yes.
That's how little I know about this.
I was thinking of like Plato's cave,
And I'm even
like
taking-
metaphors.
And I'm even taking this class. I do know Plato's cave.
Plato.
Tomato. Let's call the whole. It's over. We're done.
End scene. Allie can't speak.
No, so we have these 6 contexts. 7. Stems is 7 things. No. 6. It's actually
1, 2,
6.
3, 4, 5, 6. Yes.
It's 6 because there's 2 S's at the front. There's space
Yeah.
and then shape. Mm-hmm. Space, shape, time, emotion, movement, story.
You got it.
Those are the 6 elements that she was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the forms
Mm-hmm.
that we have in a good scene, not how are our characters connecting, not are the plot, not like we're going into the form of the way characters are moving or relate on a stage with each other. Terms, so shape can be the shape. What do you look like in relationship to each other who takes on another shape? One person could be standing up, person could be lying down.
Yeah.
That is a couple shapes relating as a larger shape on the space, the first of the ones of a stage. And because of that may they may either stay in this shape or change shapes, and that brings in the time element to it. And they have feelings about each other, and change those can change the feelings or not change the feelings.
Yes.
But it's an awareness of that. And then obviously if your things are happening, but there are also things changing their shapes and the movements. So that's movement. And all of those combine over time into some sort of story or plot.
Yes.
But you're doing it together. It's not just, hey, lead character is driving the plot,
Right.
or playwright driving the plot. what's also can be driving the plot from the outside looking in, from the perspective of the person watching, is actually the relationship of all these beings
Yes.
on the stage.
So the presentation, whatever it is concomitantly creating itself with the permission of the bodies participating, rather than one of the bodies or creating a piece and then telling the other people how to do it. So when she says the caves were our minds and the beasts were the elements of form, the beasts are the stem elements, and they are not necessarily at our control, at our whims, but they are these entities that we need to allow to speak through us. So it is kind of a less hierarchical view of creation, I would say.
Yeah, and thinking about it, so it gets us away from simply thinking about, say, being on a stage. I will transpose it to life in a little bit, but being on a stage thinking, what is the motivation for my character? All these other things that you're probably going to think about. What is the motivation for my character? Why would I be saying this to this character? What would cause my character to move because of something going on intrinsic to what my character's feeling or doing? But you're actually thinking, oh, but if I move here, I may walk right in front of this other character and mess up the view, which could hurt the story, you know? And so actually you have to think about it in terms of the physical space that you're actually in to perform, and your relationship to all these other, not just characters, but actors on the stage. And that actually has to be part of your overall dynamic. And you have to think, oh, they've moved. How does that affect my characters? Not just what did they say, not just because, oh, this person said something, or my character is a hothead who will typically react and move in a certain way, which are all valid ways of thinking about movement. But, oh, they are coming closer to me. What does that mean? From a story standpoint, it can mean more aggressiveness or more intimacy or more whatever it is. How does that change the balance to these other things? And they could be non-human beings on the stage. How does that draw attention? And so being aware almost from the perspective of the both within yourself, seeing what you're seeing, but also from what you would take to be the audience, being able to see that perspective. So taking both the inside and the outside at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's hence viewpoints, right?
Yes.
There's different viewpoints.
It is different points of
How is that for a
view.
layman who has never read any of this?
That's excellent. And as you're talking, I've been listening to you deeply, but also thinking about the fact that I'm really bad at explaining viewpoints, and I'm also bad at like explaining the time element in stems. I wonder how we'll do that when we get to doing time through movement, because in our class,
that's next, right? That should be coming up.
I think so.
Maybe as soon as Monday.
In our class, we've just been moving through space, so moving through the room in which we're taking the class, looking around, just moving. Sometimes we can crawl or lay down, but most of the time it's standing and walking. You can go at different speeds, but you're just moving. And then shape, so taking different shape in the room. And sometimes thinking about your shape in reference to other people, which sometimes can create a story. Or just thinking of shape in yourself and really being introspective of how that shape feels, what are small changes that you can make to convey just a different shape, not a different emotion, because we're not adding emotion yet. But we're just working on moving through a room and taking on different shapes, which sounds maybe overly simplistic, but I don't care how it sounds because it's really revelatory if you try it. And so when we get to time, I have been in a movement class before where different ways of like moving in time to something were suggested. Like the prompt would be honey time. And then you move not as if you're mimicking honey, but as if you're moving to the time of honey. Or it would be like hurricane time, or it would be something that isn't clock time. You have to move to that. So I wonder if that will be what we'll be doing in the time section of the course, or if we'll kind of just play more with speed, or actually what time we're in. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I would think you could play with your motion through speed, and like if you take it at its most abstract. And all of these things I feel like this is even more useful in improv than it is in scripted theater, because in scripted theater, a director's directed a lot, and you can make micro movements from within your character, but you can't just move across the stage. But the director has to think about all of this stuff. But in improv, you really are the canvas, and you are constantly affected by these changes of shape, space.
Au contraire. In traditional theater, viewpoints might not help you a ton, except in your personal development of your character when you're not at rehearsal. So your interrogation into who is my character, what do they mean? Viewpoints is still going to be very applicable to that. But you may be in a production that is scripted where your directors also take on the form of viewpoints. So in terms of Fucking A, the play that I was in recently, the actors actually created the staging for that entire play from using a viewpoints model.
Right.
And like the movement, I played a hunter along with two other women who were hunters. We were bounty hunters in this world. We created the way that we moved by simply doing viewpoints with each other. That was entirely self-created. The directors did not tell us to move that way.
But at the beginning of that, that's an improv element that then gets codified to say, yes, that's it. Now we're going to do that.
Yes.
That's now your staging that you created.
Yes. But I love the process of mutually creating the staging rather than being told the staging.
Yes. But you may not get into a show where someone gives you that option. It could be
you may not, but in the other experience that I had recently where it was more scripted, still viewpoints was used, and if you came up with something in a viewpoints exercise that you felt was better for a scene than how it was scripted, you could bring that to the director and they would consider it, and sometimes you could change the scene. So I think maybe it's just at the circles that I'm in, but I think ways that shows are constructed are changing in some theaters, and directors can be more open to a more consensus based way of creating the show. In very upper class, high echelon theater in New York, definitely not. But that's not where I am. That's not what I'm doing.
Well, it makes you think that you maybe don't need hierarchy in your artistic.
Does it make you think that? Yes, it makes me think that.
Yeah, you could have voices on the side that say, hey, that maybe try it, like almost coaching.
Yep.
Like you have an improv. Improv is big on the coaching idea.
I think even
I never liked that word, coach. But.
I know, because even that implies a status difference.
Right.
But I think even in very strict theater, even if a director always knows how they want you to do something and they're not going to change that, they still have you practice doing it other ways to then return to the way of doing it, having experienced other things.
But of course, doing it other ways won't necessarily be a viewpoints way. It could be try moving this way, move that. You're like
it may not, but Mary Overly was very specific about saying that the viewpoints exist in art, whether or not
for sure
the viewpoints. And so these practices, like we're doing them without thinking about them, and she just put it to words and turned it into
even if it's the director who's doing it all, the director has to at least have the viewpoints. It's the question is how many people are going to be involved in that creative process and the degree to which the actor.
And the reason that Mary Overly was likened to being somewhat like an anarchist by another person that I spoke to in this production, in a past production.
We will not speak about this person.
They have an asterisk, and we're not going to say what the asterisk denotes. I also have a hard time saying asterisk.
Asshole.
Asahel.
Asahel.
But they likened Mary Overly to an anarchist because they really stressed the fact that she wanted to take the elitism out of art, which we have discussed previously, as also wanting, and saying that, hey, these elements, these broken down blocks of form are accessible to everyone, and you can actually create beautiful art using nothing but the bodies of people working with you. You can do it anywhere. You can do it in the street. She was very into street dance and street theater.
Oh yeah.
And
I think about that all the time when we're dancing. Like
Yeah.
there are a lot of times where I feel myself get closer to you, especially the space element. Like when we're dance apart, dance closer. I'm always feeling what is the balance,
like, what is the social
Yeah,
balance? Like people having a story about us?
Also, like, like, does someone get to shine for a little bit? Do their twirly moves? Like, even though I'm in my own dance, I'm aware of all these other elements that we are a spectacle of two or three or four. I'm aware of what that spectacle is also saying. I am. I'm thinking not only of my own dance. I'm thinking, how do these parts fit together? Are they telling us? Are they telling a story? Are they not telling it? Like, if it's not telling a story, maybe that is a different meta story. The meta story is, wow, these people can really be weird and they're not coordinated at all, or it's like, whoa, these people are having lots of fun together and they're moving in all these different ways. It's occasionally for that half a moment they're in sync, and then they just break off of that sync. And so I'm always thinking about that stuff. I'm never that so into my own dance that I'm not aware of the outer stuff going on.
I at times am completely in my internal experience and not thinking about the external.
And I'm thinking of the whole space. Am I in the whole space? So for me,
I'm thinking about being in the whole space and being in community more so now than I used to.
So taking this class on Viewpoints, they're asking me to do things I'm already doing. Like I'm already going to. I always feel like I'm the only person who's going to every nook and cranny of a room and seeing if I can relate to it somehow. I'm the one who's always on an edge.
I have also done that before hearing about Viewpoints. That used to be a walking meditation I would do even in my teen years.
It's just natural for me, and I always an in or out. Like who am I? Where am I in this? What am I projecting? What are we?
What is the story being told?
What is the group projection? What are there different ways I can move my body? Is there someone across the room? Is there an energy in the room that seems to be that I want to balance out?
I have always thought about balancing energy in the rooms.
Like if everybody's going nuts, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go slow now. There's a room for that here, or let's be fun. Let's go nuts with everybody else. Like I'm often thinking about all of these elements.
And you often don't want to fall into like being part of a group energy, correct?
Sometimes. I would say that's not even always true, because if I feel
I said often, because
for me it's if I feel too much of one side of myself come on, I want to show a different side. So if I'm feeling too contrarian, I don't want to be contrarian. Like I'm looking for that connection. So the balancing and is not always within the group energy. Sometimes it's within my own energy as well.
That's a good answer.
And I think about that in interpersonal conversations where we're not even performing acting. I'm thinking to myself, okay, people are sitting in a certain way. Why are we sitting this way? Why is somebody's face away from everybody else? Why is there a desire for people to be really close together? Do people not want to be close together? How do people want to relate? And I'm often like, wow, that person's giving me body language that I don't necessarily want to go talk to this person. Or I don't know if they want me to talk to them, is more likely the case. And so I'm thinking often about that in interpersonal.
The natural composition of life and relating.
And what space are we in? If the space is so big and people are going to all parts of the space, it's not always conducive to maybe the kind of interactions I want. Or if I know that in advance, that's going to be in a loud hall, or we're going to a movie, we're not really going to be able to talk to each other.
I mean, it's all dependent on the other details, because I was about to be like, smaller spaces are more conducive to connection. But then you think about too many people being in a small space, and that also cannot be true.
Right. And especially if someone smells bad, for instance. You're like, whoa, I don't want to be in this.
And the people there aren't like ready to accept the smelly person for their smelliness, Right.
That happens.
They need their crowd.
So these are things that we can bring outside of the stage into life.
Yes.
That these
And we
viewpoints are
should.
always existing.
These are not like just saved for theatrical productions. These are not things that only need to be thought about when we're creating something. These are the elements of life.
And we can use these to help tell our stories or deconstruct things going on, or maybe even change the stories. We could say, it's kind of like in a dating profile, we don't know if that's the real person. Mm-hmm. We don't know that perhaps the space someone's in, maybe they're afraid they're not being heard, why they're talking so extra loud. And maybe we presume, wow, that hierarchical motherfucker, they're just trying to dominate with their voice.
Having been judged by so many people my whole life for being loud. Well, not my whole life, because I was very quiet until I was like 17. But from 17 on, being very harshly judged by people for being loud, even though I sometimes just don't have volume control. Mm-hmm. Like, that's a very unmasked thing for me, is to just be loud all of a sudden. Mm-hmm. And if I know that I'm being too loud for someone, I can modulate my voice. That's something I can do. But I need to know that somebody is actually irritated and bothered by the fact that I'm speaking loudly to know that I should do that. So
being aware of someone's reactions in your space, also not assuming values just because somebody comes some way, because maybe they're reacting to a space or a shape or something a particular way. Mm-hmm. All of these things, I think, make us somewhat humble, but also allow us to read situations beyond what is on the letter of a chat box. We can somehow intuit what's beyond their dating profile sometimes.
We're not AI humans yet.
Have I carried us into the third beat by carrying some of the first beats of our podcast?
You have.
I can't help it. I connect. I'm a connector.
That's great. I just like to spew out whatever wants to shard out of me, and then if it ends up having some cohesiveness to it, if the art has any continuity, then that's a plus.
I definitely have a prejudice for continuity. So continuity was one of our.
It was one of our practice prompts before words. This, yeah.
So you even tied that in.
I did tie something in that didn't need to be tied in. Yes, I do that. And we were talking earlier about I have less of a need for continuity and structure, because I was just bombarded with the concept that art was only art if it followed an exact form and stayed true to that form always. So maybe I'm in a little bit of a rebellious nature of wanting to do things that my opera teacher would have hated in every aspect of art.
It would be really interesting to do an episode where we truly had no plan. Like it was just a conversation. We have nothing. We're going to go on any tangent. It will be an hour and a half of us just completely shooting the shit. And, but the thing is, I don't think it would, because I will always retie stuff back.
Yes.
So I will fuck up your desire.
I'd have to have a thing and be like, no tie backs, and then you couldn't do it. Blocked from tying.
But that would be its own tie.
Yeah, it would. Can't escape the tie.
You can't escape coherence.
Yeah.
No matter how chaotic you try to be, there will be no chaos. There will always be something fucking pulling it all together.
Which is also kind of a comfort. Because in my life, I've been talking about in my relationships, how I've always felt so chaotic and nobody can understand me. I'm the most abstract creature there's ever been. And I still, in things that I say in conversations and in this podcast, you can tell I still kind of feel this way. But because I'm boring. And
no, it doesn't mean that. It means I like the oxygen rush. It's the space induces it.
Getting high on oxygen.
It's my shape causes this.
I don't know why that was so funny, but it was. But anyway,
because we established that in the first beat. I'm just bringing it back.
Jesus Christ. Too many times. But I think that I have too little coherency, and that the way that I speak never makes sense to anyone. But the more I talk with people who actually like me as a person and value me, the more I realize that yes, I have a different kind of form, but I still adhere to that. I still adhere to Weird Alley form, which in its own way is being consistent, is having symmetry, is I go and I paint and I, just do my little weird things in conversation or what have you. But it does make sense in its own way if the other person is present in the conversation and interested in what I'm saying.
Yes, I agree. Let me say this in my gym way about your alleyway. Yeah, there
Okay.
are times you say things that if you took it as a snippet by itself are like, that fucking makes no sense. I would have no idea what she's saying. It's nonsense. You've used words that don't exist. You use them in strange ways,
I don't think I often use words that don't
Not
exist.
too often. I think you did actually. I think you said the word coherency or something like that. I guess it's a word, but it wasn't in the context you used it. But it was like there are things that you say
I use a different context.
that a certain person with a certain brain will be like, I don't know what this person's saying. I don't know what they're saying. I don't know what they're saying. But if you get to know you, and you're a person who has the patience and loves to,
You're making it sound like it's
No.
hard to be a friend to me because
No,
you have to be really patient and want to
it's-
decode it.
Okay, but I think that's true in any friendship. You
I do
need
too.
to be patient.
I do too. People want very convenient, easy relationships that are probably not.
Because you're not just audibly loud, you're loud emotionally. You come on like a melodramatic actor on the stage, which a lot of
That a
people, that's
director
not
would
their
say,
style.
tone it down.
Which is funny that you like to act parts that are not
I
melodramatic.
know.
Well,
Yeah. Maybe that's my
because
attempt
the
at balance.
actual you is very, oh my god, this person hated me. Oh my god, I had the worst day. Oh my god, I had the best day.
Yeah.
I feel alive and in love with life. Those things I would never. To me, there is a coherence ultimately to all the things you say, and they are rooted in something very intelligent, very, very deep, very coherent that I can translate into the way I speak, which isn't always like I've listened to my podcast. I'm like, oh my god, I cut my thoughts off. How do people even understand what I'm saying? So even my own story of being able to put things into neat little packages isn't true. Like often I'm like, oh my god, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
Or I cut my thought off.
Any conversation with another person is really a leap of faith that the other person will try to go
meet
where
you,
you're
try
going.
to understand you,
Yeah.
unravel the puzzle and retranslate it and put it back together.
Yes, and my coworker did say recently that talking with me is like a profound riddle. And I was like, that's fucking amazing.
But it's also can sound harsh. Too.
It can, but she was saying she literally goes home and thinks about things that I've said and then comes back and has a thought that she wants to share about them. I love that somebody is putting so much thought into something that I've said. That makes me feel really important.
And that won't be for everybody. Some
No.
people, their style is going to be, I need things and things that make sense the first time. That's too hard for my brain to try to figure out what this person's saying, or I can't deal with this person's loud emotions or whatever it is.
Right.
Those are different styles, different strokes for different folks.
You sound like a guy on a dating profile now.
Different strokes for different folks, if you know what I mean.
And you want to see these strokes?
Let me show you a picture.
I'll stroke this dick in you.
We don't have to describe that.
We don't. But I want to say on that, just because I have to always bring everything back to me before I started accepting who I really am as a person, I get more people who will say on a first interaction with me, I completely understand what you're saying and I love it. I get more of those responses now than I ever did when I was, by all accounts, very coherent. Relatively quiet, but not like so quiet that I was shy, but just like speaking in a normal tone that people think is normal, and being very clear in an objective sense. People misunderstood me more.
Do a tie-in.
Okay.
Can I do a tie-in?
Yeah.
We're not doing the no tie-ins episode.
We're not.
We're
definitely not. This is all tie-ins episode.
The reason I feel like I can understand you as well as I do and why you're getting that response is because many of us don't just hear words in order to understand. We actually are engaged in viewpoints.
Yes.
We hear what's behind the emotion. Mm-hmm. We see all the different ways, and we fill in the blanks of what we're not literally hearing in the words, and we get it.
Yes.
Because the words themselves, just like a photograph can tell a lie, like you take a picture of a mountain and you're like, wow, that mountain was actually so much bigger, but the canvas got flattened. You're looking at 3-dimensional reality. If it's reduced to 2-dimensional, it doesn't always capture the experience.
Yes.
It's the same when we're talking to each other. So if we are so focused on a 1 dimension or 2 dimensions or reality coming at us, and that's how we're processing the world, like a camera processing a landscape, we are going to miss the truth. But full relationships and full people, we can see them. We can see them for who they are, even if we're not getting all the details.
Yes.
Hence why I think I'm pretty good at reading people on dating apps, is I've gotten, I don't mean to brag, but I think I've gotten pretty good in many cases of reading people. Not that I don't ever get it wrong, but I've gotten better at filling in those blanks, seeing the viewpoints where they don't exist. So where we could do it'll be interesting to listen to our improv and to see, whoa, I can see where they are in relationship to each other. I can feel that they're probably a couple inches apart. I can feel that that these people have a relationship and a story with each other. Probably not, because it was so superficial, but that all of these things of the viewpoints can still come out, even if we're only getting a particular viewpoint of someone.
And it is natural for humans to see stimuli and then make a story about it. Like, we see something and our brain creates a story of it within like 5 milliseconds or something, which is why we can form a lot of unhealthy biases, why we can create assumptions about people and things that are not correct.
And also,
but the art of it is to basically just call in more awareness of these things that are happening and these reactions and stimuli that are occurring.
Call out the assumptions you might make that are wrong and the prejudices, because they're all going to be inherently prejudiced. So you heard someone say something to you and you're like, I bet you they're an awesome person. They had some qualities. They said the certain key words that I'm looking for, and their eyes lit up, and it was clear they were listening to me. You could be wrong about all of those things. It could be.
I have been wrong about those things on many an occasion, and I have fucked those people.
But if you can identify it, you could say they had this certain spatial relationship with me.
Yes.
Those are the things, and I make associations based on those things.
Which is
and then it'd be interesting to see how often those are right or wrong.
Yeah.
And there are certain people have gotten into certain habits in our society, say around racism or sexism. I think a lot of what you face is honestly sexism from men. Probably. Men will hear a certain thing.
I say, that's a surprising idea.
And they have a certain idea of what sounds intelligent.
Yeah.
And you don't fit that box, even though you're extremely intelligent. See how brown my nose is right now?
He's going to try to get some action or whatever you said.
I'm going to get some creme brulee pussy.
Well, none of that here, so good luck to you.
How do I know?
Listener, write in if your pussy smells like creme brulee.
Maybe we should cut this off somewhere.
I love it. No, continue with your
I don't know what I was saying anymore.
Oh, God. Okay, well, I'm just going to say that
How could you not be overwhelmed by creme brulee pussy? I mean, it just totally blocks out everything. Like, you're smart, you're intelligent.
Oh, yes, you were saying that I'm intelligent. Yeah.
That it's sexism because there are certain things that certain guys expect, and so that you fit a certain stereotype.
Mhm.
And people have that stereotype towards white people towards black people towards white people. All these stereotypes exist that people have that are based on certain assumptions.
Mhm.
A lot of those we know are ridiculous assumptions.
They make
that
an
people
ass out
have.
of you and me.
However, we do know if we can start breaking down where those come from. It could be shape. It could be all of these different viewpoint elements. It, I think, is eye-opening.
Yeah.
It can help us not just simply say I shouldn't have a prejudice, but where does my prejudice come
Where
from?
does it come from? How does it feel in my body to realize that this is my thought and this is where it came from?
Or perhaps what really upsets you. For instance, you will be like, that person came aggressively at me.
Mhm.
Is the assumption that someone moving closer into your space is necessarily being aggressive.
Yes.
But it also could be maybe they were coming aggressively, but you identified some other aspect of that person,
right,
skin color, whatever it is,
yes,
and you've morphed. What really bothers you is that someone's come into your space,
Mhm.
but what you've done is you've transposed it to some other cultural
yes.
stereotype
No
and
information
norm.
we receive in society is ever pure,
Right.
because we are existing with all of our internalized perceptions.
And right. And so then we're not open to different cultural differences that have different spatial relationships with each other, different verbal, different all of these things. So if you're raised in a white middle class waspy society that has sort of a Puritan upbringing, the idea of someone just slapping you on the back or giving you a peck on the cheek or any of those things are going to communicate different social messages based on your upbringing.
Yeah.
Learning to be aware of where those come from, but also being aware of, oh my gosh, this person is comes from a fairly tight upbringing. How I normally behave may communicate something completely different, and not necessarily changing your behavior.
Yeah.
Maybe it does change your behavior.
Mm-hmm.
It's like improv again. It's like why improv the anarchism is understanding where the shifting boundaries of people,
and then making your choice.
Then making your choice, and then dealing with the feedback that you get from that.
Yes, and I will say,
positive or negative.
That is also beautiful. Thinking of our spatial relations, our relationship in time with other people, all of these things, and just meditating on that whenever you can. But also, I just wanted to say that I am actively working against my internal bias to date long-haired men. And being like, oh, I'm attracted to this man. Does he have long hair? No. I'm specifically in my not dating long-haired men era, because I've done it too many times. The next perfect person for me could be a man with long hair. Not getting in. Wow. I'm trying new things.
Yeah.
I'm deconstructing my internalized
Someone called that bigotry.
Maybe. But they're specifically white long-haired men. They're fine. They're okay. They're going to get all the creme brulee pussy they could ever
White long-haired men will?
Yes.
We'll get all the... Yeah, because you don't have creme brulee.
Because women like them.
Oh, I see. And you don't have creme brulee, so they're not getting you.
No, not me.
It made it sound like that they can get you.
They can't get me.
They cannot get you.
No, if you had been in the continuity of this conversation...
I just want to make it clear, because it sounded like you had said the opposite.
I do speak in double negatives.
Yeah, and I was like, I do not want you to get you in trouble on your first YouTube podcast.
And I'm not. Maybe the listeners would have gotten
explicit content.
But I do want to aim to be clear.
I need to put a disclaimer on the whatever.
What disclaimer?
That this
may have
parental discretion is advised.
What kids are trying to listen to our podcast? And we believe
if
in
they'd
kids
only
being
know.
able to seek out the information that they want to, and that they're autonomous individuals. Kidding. Oh, I didn't realize that was.
We do probably have to mention it's explicit on the things.
Yeah, but
because of the rules and the hierarchy.
Kids are watching explicit.
It's their space.
Anyway.
It's fucking Google space.
Absolutely.
They can do what they want. We can We could post it somewhere else if we
We're
had to.
limited to these platforms. Do you have anything else to say?
Final thoughts. I'm getting hungry. I
Yeah.
can't wait to take you out. Would you go out on a date with me for dinner?
I would. Do you think there would be creme brulee there?
We could try to make that happen.
I don't think there's any creme brulee in Bozeman. I don't think it even exists. I too am hungry, and I want to end on a poem that I think is related. Do you think it's related? Is this a tangent?
No, I don't know. Is it?
It's the poem I read you earlier.
I don't remember it.
That was great improv. I love it. Okay, so this poem by TG. Oh shit, I don't know who the author is besides that their initials are TG. Sorry.
The God.
The guy.
Tia Goddess. Aunt Goddess.
Yeah, something.
Jane.
TG. What Cathale said. You can sing sweet and get the song sung. But to get to the third dimension, you have to sing it rough. Hurt the tune a little. Put enough strength to it that the notes slip. Then something else happens. The song gets large.
I do remember. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a deep voice.
I don't.
Okay, well, lovers to haters. This is it, right?
This is it. This has been a delight for me, and my mind has expanded.
Me
I
too.
hope your minds haven't shrunk out there. As usual, write into us with any
that's
thoughts,
right.
suggestions,
We have stuff.
offers. Do we just follow us on Instagram at Bozeman Antifa and
Email us
at Bozeman Antifa
at gmail.com,
Yep. And read our essays.
which are at bozemanantifadance.org.
Yeah, and I don't know when we're dancing next, but we'll post about it on the Instagram. whenever
We'll
we
be
are.
dancing at my 50th birthday party.
That you're also not invited to.
If you want to be invited to it, just reach out
Just
to
let
us.
us know.
That's going to be my 50th birthday is October 10th. You're not invited to that. But October 8th, we're having a dance, improv, intentional, intimate conversation, potluck, without alcohol.
So you would be down with a potential stranger who listens to the pod coming to your birthday party?
Absolutely. If you took the time to listen to it, you can come
Pretty bold.
and we'll let you know where it is.
I wouldn't be down for that because I'm a woman, but Jim is a man, so he can risk that.
Right. So Allie's birthday, she makes her own rules up. Do you feel unsafe with a random man coming to my birthday party?
I don't feel unsafe with that, no. But if
Okay.
a random man was coming to see me
Okay.
at a party, I would feel
Because
unsafe
I don't
with
want my
that.
guests to be unsafe.
No,
at my party.
I don't. I think if anything occurs,
Bye, everybody. No.
we can figure out how to handle that, right? It's just like being open, having a situation occur, and then dealing with the repercussions. So I
Okay.
think we can figure that out.
So yes, and we don't know if it's a man. I'm
We don't
guessing
know
we
if it's
have.
a man. I'm
actually-
sure it would be a woman. I'm sure it would be.
I don't have male.
We've
friends.
only been reached out to by women, I think, on the podcast, besides like a male friend that you knew previously.
Yeah. Actually, he counts as a man.
He counts as a man, but you knew him.
I did.
We've only gotten reached out to by female strangers.
Oh, true. The strangers who have reached out to us have been all women.
Well, who reached out in a kind way. We've had many
There have been
horrible
2.
men reach out to us. That's it! Scene!
Scene! Goodbye.
The police don't protect you. The government doesn't serve you. Change isn't made in a ballot box. You better get together with the people in your neighborhood and learn how to save yourselves.